Welcome to the MuseCast, where we squeeze every last drop of inspiration out of Sunday's sermon.
This time I'm laughing because now, Dan, you are doing this more and more. When you give us the "it's time to go," you're like very dramatic with it. You're like,
that's right. Yes. Well, and I have like my little rolly bookshelf thing there for the books that I'm currently reading. So I have to be very careful. It's a nuanced thing, so you have to be very agile when you do that.
Yeah, we don't need to see you tumbling backwards over a bookshelf, book flying. We don't need to see that.
Well, and it's funny too because I care about the books. I don't really care about me. It's like I don't want to wreck the books. Plus I've got bookmarks in there, and I've got everything's half read, and I've got notes, and I don't want to mess up all of that, So I'll heal, but trying to put all that back together.
No, thank you.
Yeah.
Dan, I have one pressing thought that it's been nagging at me since Sunday, and that is, I feel like we need a Woodland Hills, maybe a MuseCast-led volleyball team.
That'd be great. Oh, heck yeah. Totally do that.
Can you get back in game shape? Can you?
Well, maybe in Florida, but I certainly can't get in game shape here because it's too cold. But my nickname was the Squirrel because I would just I looked like a squirrel, because I would dive and do these digs out of the ground, and yeah, so I was very very dynamic. I was very Spider-Man in my digs, and I loved it. It was so fun. I don't think I could do the digs like I used to anymore, but someday, maybe next MuseCast, I'll share a picture. Someone took a picture of me digging, and it's Yes, we demand to see this photo, and so you have 1 week to procure that and get it ready for I'll see what I can,
the MuseCast folks.
I'll see what I can find.
Okay, perfect. All right, Dan, I don't know if you know this, but in this Christmas series called Christmas Lights, and Clark Kent's brother happened to be at Woodland and delivered a sermon entitled Destination Known. I don't know if you're aware of all that, but or if I'm giving you breaking news, but did you get to hear it?
It was Clark, first of all, gets all the attention, and it's just not fair, so it's good to give his brother a little attention. But I this week we are in this Christmas Lights series, and it's it's weird because as a church, we do series, and I like series, where you do a series on an idea or a series on a section of verses or something like that. And there's just so much variety of the different things that you can do. But Christmas is interesting because every year you have that Christmas series. And so, we have to kind of figure out what feels right this year for the series. And I was part of the team as we were kind of figuring out what we were going to do, and it's really fun to see, because I just have this sense that we all feel sensitive to the darkness of the world right now, and I do have hope, and I do have trust, and I do believe that the Bible offers light for a lot of this darkness in the world. And so I thought that would be a good Christmas series, but planning it and thinking about it is one thing, but then when Greg actually does it, and then when I was able to put together a sermon for it and so forth, it's really fun to see how it actually shapes up. And it's been fun for sure. It's been good. That's probably a better word for it. But this week I looked at meaninglessness, was the darkness that I was looking at, and I really kind of shared my own story about how I was basically led to Jesus through comic books, and I just thought it was interesting that we watch these comic book movies now, and they're just incredible. I mean, they really are just amazing, and just the special effects and all of the characters and the writing and all of that. And then you think of the Christmas Story, and it's just kind of dull, and yet we keep coming back to that. And what I argued is that the reason for that there's probably a lot of reasons, but one of the reasons why we keep coming back to the Christmas story is because the Christmas story offers us something that all of the other stories in the world don't offer. And in particular, that's meaning. Meaning is what the Christmas story points to that the other stories just can't. And what I did is I looked at, well, what is meaning? And by looking at what meaninglessness is, and I think that we can all experience, we can all relate to what that feels like. But I talked about Sisyphus, who is this mythic king who is condemned for all eternity, pushing this rock up a hill. And when the rock would get to the top, it would roll down, and he had to go down and push it again. And it was just futile. It was pointless. And that's kind of what life can feel like. And the world tries a lot of things, especially in particular, people in the world who don't believe in God, they have to figure out, well, can I still have meaning even without God? And they try a lot of things. And one of the big things that happened in the 20th century is you have the existentialists like Jean-Paul Sartre and people like that who say, well, yes, you can have meaning even without God, because you can decide who you want to be, who you want to become. And this kind of self-oriented self-becoming can be the meaning in life that you hunger for. Camus, who is writing about the same time here, he is a nihilist. He doesn't think that you can have meaning without God. And I happen to agree with Camus. But it's not like the existentialists didn't give us anything. What they gave us is they gave us purpose. And so I make a distinction between purpose and meaning. And we desire meaning, and we settle for purpose a lot of times. And so purpose would be kind of like if Sisyphus is pushing this rock up the hill, and he has this meaningless life, but he learns how to yodel, and he becomes the greatest yodeler ever. He's given himself a sense of purpose, but he's still in this meaningless life. And so what we want is that bigger sort of meaning. And that's what I argue the Bible offers is the Bible, especially starting in the Christmas story, in the manger, you have the inbreaking of God's ultimate meaning, the meaning that does actually satisfy us and fulfill us. Because, this whole kind of create yourself and be who you want to be, and life is a journey, that's great and all, but the whole life is a journey thing, you need to have a destination for that journey outside of yourself. And that's what I think the Christmas story provides, is this destination for our journey. Otherwise, life is just a treadmill. And so you really need that destination. Now, that destination is not necessarily heaven. And I argue that it's something a little more basic than that. And I talk about in Acts 17 and in Revelation 21, where God says that he created humanity in Acts so that we might find or seek God and find God. And then in Revelation 21, there's this promise that God will dwell with us, and we will be his people, and he will be our God, and he'll be right there with us. And that's the destination, is being present with God. And a few weeks ago, I did a sermon called The Path as a Person, where I talked about Job and how Job had all of these intellectual sort of doubts and questions. And then he was present with God, and he was totally content and satisfied and contrite. And he never got any of his questions answered, because his meaning was fulfilled. He said, my ears had heard of you, but now my eyes have seen you. And it's like, that just satisfies everything. And the same is true there. And then I finished the sermon with kind of a challenge, or a kind of what would you call it? Like a call to think of your own story, and how the Christmas story has kind of impacted your own story, and how the story of Jesus and the story of God has shaped your own story. Because it really is through story that we make sense in how we understand ourselves, how we understand our lives, and how we understand our futures. And so it's just very important to have God be part of your story. And you can't do that if you're not really even aware of your own story. And you can't do that if you haven't really thought about God's role in your story. And then the last thing I'll say is that the other important thing about this is that the claim of the New Testament and the claim of the church is that it's not just a story, it's a news story. In other words, the Gospels is good news. It's not just a story like the Avengers, where a bunch of writers came up with these characters. No, what we're saying is that these things happened and are happening and will happen. It's news. And since it's news that affects each of us. And so it's just that much more important to think about your own story and how it relates. And we're going to talk a lot about that news angle in 2023. We're going to be doing a series called Unraveling the Truth, where we're going to talk about a lot of those types of things. So that is my summary. Any thoughts on the sermon?
I don't know. It was all right. I kid. No, I was actually, while you were giving your summary, I don't have my notebook with me when I take the notes in, but I had notes. And so I was writing down my note, the key things from my notes that I remember. And so I'm just going to kind of spout off some of the things that I remember writing down. Worms singing. I had never considered worms singing because of a yodeler. That was,
well, they were weeping.
No, but
they were weeping. They were weeping at the beauty. Yeah, the beauty of the yodeling. That's right. Yes.
Okay. Yes. Okay. They were weeping at the. Well, then that I've clearly seen.
Well, yeah.
I mean,
of course.
Right.
Of course.
I mean, don't you know? But that was. But honestly, the picture and how true is that? Like pushing the boulder up the hill for it just to come back down. I thought that was brilliant. I really appreciated, on a more serious note, I really appreciated how you differentiated between meaninglessness and purpose, because I think so many people are like searching for what they think is that they need, which is purpose. But I really appreciated it. I'm still reflecting on that. Like, no, it's not really purpose. It's neat because you can have purpose. You can,
That's right.
You can even fulfill a purpose, but it doesn't mean you have meaning. So I thought that was really great, Dan. And so if during our time today, you want to expound upon that a little bit, I say, feel free. That would be amazing. I really love that. And the whole, the destination for our journey, because we talk a lot about the journey, and the journey is important because, right, we haven't yet reached our destination, but I think it is so important to know that we do have a destination. So we know the direction in which we're moving toward on this journey. So a destiny for our journey. I really love that. And I just kept thinking when you were talking about story and what all that really means, the impact of that. It's a story with consequence, right? And by consequence, I don't mean like tit for tat. I don't mean like, oh, you do something bad, so there's a consequence. I mean, it's a story that has significance. And so it's a good news story. It is something that like literally changes the trajectory of everything. And why would we not want to reframe our story in light of that? So I thought, as always, Dan, you have a way of mixing in the real with the funny, with the theological, with the existential. There's always some philosophy in there. So it's just a good mixed bag. And I really appreciated what you brought to us. So I want to say thank you.
Oh,
I really appreciate that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I think that. Oh, yeah.
Oh,
I was just going to say the point that you made about purpose and meaning and how people think they're getting meaning in their life when they're only getting purpose. I think that is a big, big part of what leads to disappointment in life and all of that, because and a lot of people who kind of they don't take religion, they don't take faith seriously because they don't think they need all of that because they have all of this. And the fact is that purpose really can distract us and it can consume us, but it can't fulfill us the way that we think it will. And the more that we get consumed by purpose without having meaning, the harder it is to get that fulfillment later. And the fact is that the purpose is good, but as long as you have it all toward the right destination, if you just have purpose, then you're just without meaning, you're just on a treadmill. And I just think that's important for people to understand.
Absolutely. I kind of feel like purpose without meaning, it's just utilitarian, right? You're just a tool.
Yeah.
Not like, you know what I mean? Like you're just
not in the derogatory way, but
not in the derogatory way. No, but it's like my vacuum. I appreciate it very much. I love it when it gets used and does its job, when it fulfills its purpose, but that's not meaningful. So I definitely feel like without that meaning, and through the lens of like our destination, it's just utilitarian. And so, I think there's more there. And knowing you probably have a ton there. But I also wanted to give you an opportunity, like we always do. We always say, like, whenever we have someone who has spoken on Sunday and is with us on the MuseCast, we always want to give them time to like maybe expound on anything that they feel like they didn't get to dig into quite enough, or maybe something that they left out. But you have a unique opportunity because, hello, you're one of the hosts of this show. So we make the rules. And I just wanted to say, here is another platform, Dan. Here is another stage. Right. And so take some time and just go where you want to go, where you didn't get to go. And before I do that, I just want to say to you, our family super appreciated the Marvel references because we are Marvel nerds over here. Our cat's name is Loki, and she lives up to that name. Yep.
Get out. Really?
Yep. Yeah.
Wow. That's amazing.
Her name is Loki, and she lives up to it. Like, if you watch Marvel and you watch the character of Loki, you know what I'm talking about. Oh, she drives me irate sometimes.
Oh, that's funny.
Yep. Yeah. So we're big Marvel and DC fans there, and even Star Wars fans, because like I said, our dog's name is Finn. So we appreciated the comic book. And just this, like, could you guys not picture Dan as a little tyke working in the comic book store, bartering his wages for some more comic books?
Totally.
It was priceless. I loved it.
Yeah, those were the days, I tell you. Well, it's Shawna too. I do. This is like, so here, let me show you this. I'll do a little show and tell here. Actually, don't. Yeah. So this is the. Oh, that's not it. Well, I guess I can't do show and tell if I don't have my show with me. Oh, here it is. Okay, good. So this is the sermon. So there's like 14 pages of stuff for the sermon, and then this is another like 8 pages of stuff that I cut out. And then here's another 3 pages of stuff I cut out. And then here's another 8 pages that I cut out. And so there's like 20 some pages of stuff that I cut out. And so I have too much to say, but I'll just say a couple quick things. I really wish I had time to share this passage out of Ephesians, but I cut it because I was short on time, and I haven't really done the deep exegetical study on it. But I just think it's really fascinating because this is from Ephesians 2:1-3. And Paul says, you were once dead in your transgressions and sin. So in other words, you were dead. It was lifeless, or in other words, your transgressions and sin were ultimately meaningless. It was dead. There was nothing there. Those transgressions and sins in which you used to live when you followed the ways of this world, which is all about purpose and without meaning. And the ruler of the kingdom of the air, who is the orchestrator of meaningless purpose. And then Paul says, all of us also lived among them at one time. So he's saying, look, we've all been there. We've all tried to fill this void through purpose and through entertainment and through amusing ourselves to death. In other words, Paul is saying we were all on the treadmill. But then, so this is Ephesians 2:1-3. Then in verse 4, he says this, but because of God's great love for us, God, who is rich in mercy, made us alive again with Christ. Okay, so how does he do that? Next verse. God raised us up with Christ and seated us with him in heavenly realms. In other words, he gave us a destination. He gave us a place to go to, which is this place next to God in Jesus's presence, in order that in the coming ages, he might show incomparable riches of his grace. And so I just feel like that passage so nicely captures what I was saying, where, look, the world is just, it runs like a machine on things to do and things to keep us busy and hustle, but there's no meaning there. So it's just, you have 6.5 billion people pushing little rocks up hills, and we've all been there, Paul says. But God came to say, okay, let's do something that actually has a destination. And I just think the passage just so beautifully kind of captures that. But the other part that I left out, and I wish I had more time, is just looking at like our culture and how our society has changed over the last 150 years in particular, with just this change in mindset where we went from kind of like this connected sort of mindset into this journey mindset where life is a personal journey of becoming. And you really see a lot of these things shift in the mid 1900s. And so you go from, I am Irish and I am a Minnesotan and I am whatever, I am a Kent, to I am Dan, and your God goes from being the Rock of Ages to my co-pilot, and you have like we go from like our religious practices and our traditions to spirituality instead of religion, because spirituality, well, that's very adjustable to my path of becoming. I can adjust that according to how I become. Whereas tradition is this thing that is fixed and I have to adjust to it. Well, that doesn't work for a journey of becoming. And then you have, instead of like relying on tradition, you have all of these people now suddenly doing all of these religious experimentations. And especially in the 1950s and 60s and early 70s, you have people like doing acid and tapping into Navajo traditions and Buddhist traditions. And there's nothing wrong with those traditions. It's just the desperate sort of experimentation and searching that is suspect. It's very suspicious. And then you go from I belong to Christ to I am my own. And it's just fascinating how that changes, where you go from like this deep kind of life is all about my becoming who I want to be and getting more in touch with myself. But then you see like this profound sense in which that's not satisfying people anymore. And you see this shift now. Instead of trying to become more of myself, I need to go beyond myself. I need to basically escape myself through like mushrooms and acid trips and that type of thing. And we watch these superhero movies and we dream of being more than human. And it's just so fascinating that in the face of all of that, God becomes one of us as just a normal person. And almost as if to say, stop trying to escape yourself. You're fine. You're fine. You're being human is good. It's good enough. And I just think there's something really beautiful about that. The other thing I would say is it's people. Well, let's see. I want to save that. Where did my note go? Oh shoot! I closed my book. See, this is the problem, is I have so much stuff. It's hard to keep track, but fortunately I'm very good at this. Let's see. Oh, yeah. Let's see. Oh, I did that already. All right, let me look at one more thing.
You got it.
Oh, yeah. This is what it is. This is what I was going to say. And this is part of the end of my sermon. I was not happy with. Where I was kind of encouraging people to think of their story. And part of the reason for that is because I haven't really thought a lot about that. But I think that there's something really important there about just becoming familiar with the story that you tell yourself about yourself, and the story that you tell yourself about how you got to where you are, and the story that you tell about the things that happened in your life, and the story that you tell about your future and where you're going. I do think that there's something profoundly important to that, but I haven't really worked it out as much as I would like to, and I'm continuing to work on that. But one thing that I think is very consistent with what we've talked about at Woodland Hills is our picture of God is so important, because really our picture of what God is like is a story about God. Is it a story of God who is easily angered, or is it a story of God who is overflowing with mercy and grace? And so thinking of your story about God as part of your own story, I think is so key. But it's really a part of this that I'm still working on quite a bit. And then the last thing I'll say is that Greg in week 1 said this. He said, in order to move from becoming hearers of the word to being actual doers of the word, then we need to have a compelling vision of our destination. And I just think that he had no idea what I was going to be talking about, but he said that, and it's like, that's exactly right. Because if you know that your destination is to be present with God, well, then are you really going to want to be present with God the way that you are, like, or do you, like, in your sin, or would you like to kind of work on some of those sins now, so you're more comfortable around God? I mean, in my mind, that's how I think of it. Like I want to be less angry. I don't want to be as angry as I am. I don't want to be as hopeless as I am about humans. I don't want to be as disappointed as I am in what we've done to the world. I want to be full of love, and I want to be, my especially now going into Christmas, all of the kind of feelings that I have about my family. I want those to be. I want reconciliation in my family. I want to at least do my best. Whether reconciliation takes two people, but I want to at least do my best to heal relationships to the best of my ability, and then go and be with God. And so just thinking about, like, what are all the things that I would want to do if I knew that God was coming? What are all the things in my life that I would want to do to prepare for that? And that motivates me to be a doer of the word, and to look at what Jesus told me to be like, to prepare for his presence. And so, yeah, that's a lot of stuff. And it wasn't as, in my mind, that was all more coherent and fit together nicer, but hopefully there's something helpful there.
Yeah, no, I thought that was really good. You could almost even do another series within a series, honestly, with diving into some of this other stuff that you didn't have time to include. And there's a lot, like, just that idea of, like, what we are all desperately searching for. And I just wonder how many times was God like, hello, it's me. Like, I'm the one that you're just desperately, like, scratching and clawing and seeking and searching. And God's just like, hey, I'm here. I'm literally here. I am, like, with you. I'm walking amongst you. But I want to circle back to something that I think is just the core. It's the foundation of certainly our theology, and the things that we feel are important to teach and talk about and learn, is our view of God. You are so right, Dan. I think that our view of God, if we reflect on that, we begin to tell ourselves a story. And if we pay attention to that story, that will reveal to you how you see him and who you believe him to be. And that absolutely impacts our story. So if you see God as angry, aloof, distant, waiting for the next shoe to drop, like, that is going to impact your story as it relates to him. And so it is so vital. And I think that's why we repeat it so much. It's so vital to get that straight, to get that true picture of God, who he is, who he was, who he will be, and has always been. I think that's vital. So I'm glad that was in your notes, even though it didn't make it to the pulpit on Sunday.
Yeah, that's good. I think that's exactly right. There was something else I was going to say about the story part, but I think that's about it. Yeah.
I think we have a bumper sticker. We could go into business, because I feel like here on the MuseCast, we come up with quite a few. So if anyone out there is in the bumper sticker making business, here's another one to add to the queue. Human is good enough. Like, I love that. I mean, I think it would cause people to go, like, wait, what? What do you mean by that? But you said it in the sermon, and then you just said it here again. Like, human is good enough. And you're right. Like, there is this feeling of we need to be more than, we need to come outside of ourselves. And because we don't always figure out or know what that is, then I think we're, again, scratching and clawing and trying to find things that it's actually quite simple. Like, God became human. So yeah, he decided that it was good and good enough.
That's right.
Very clever, man.
Yeah.
Way to go. All right. I know you probably think that you've shared a ton and you've said a lot of words. And so I wouldn't possibly ask you for a nugget, but you'd be wrong. You would be wrong. It is what we affectionately call around here nugget time. And so I want to give you one last shot of wrapping this up. And like you said, there's aspects of this that we will carry into the new year and talk about and discuss. So I'm excited for that. But for now, to put a bow on Destination Known, what is your nugget?
Yeah, I think it's weird because like this is a nugget that it's sort of loosely related, but it's not like a personal transformation nugget, you know? But one thing that I realized that I was doing, which is very insecure and very fear-based, but like I remember like seeing like in like 2012 2013 there was all this talk about people leaving the faith, people leaving the church, and now like people will talk about the rise of the nuns, which is not the Catholic nuns. This is the nuns, like NONES. That is people who have no faith. They don't believe in anything. And that's a growing part of our population. And then there's all the new atheists. And I remember being afraid, like the church is dying. And I guess as I've really kind of lived into some of this stuff about being secure in the fact that I have a destination and being secure in this belief that, look, we hunger for something that the world cannot provide, that only God can provide. Because if you think about it, if ultimate meaning is meant to be-ness, well, then there has to be somebody who means it. There has to be somebody who intends it. That's what meant to be means. And if that's the only thing that can satisfy us in that deep way, which I think it is, well, then the world cannot provide a very basic thing that we all need. And so, there may be shifts and ebbs and flow of people going in and out of church and things like that. But I trust that hunger is insatiable in the world and can only be satisfied in God. And so I just trust that it doesn't matter if people leave the church, because I think that this is what the people need. And if people are leaving the church, it's not because of God, it's because of something that the church is doing to turn people away. And seeing people leave the church should be kind of a nudge to say, well, what could we be doing better to help show people that's a treadmill out there, and the destination that they really want is here. And so that's, I guess, my nugget.
Good nugget, Dan. My nugget's gonna kind of ever so slightly tie into your nugget, in that my nugget is again about purpose and meaning. And my nugget is an encouragement. First of all, like Dan said, having purpose isn't bad. Fulfilling purpose isn't bad. I mean, we kind of need to be about doing stuff and fulfilling our purposes. But my encouragement is like, don't just stop there, because what you really are searching for and what is really available to you is meaning. And Dan talked to us all about what that meaning is and where that meaning is found. And so I would love to take that from just the grand picture and just say, in this moment, in this day, in this hour, Lord, show me meaning. Show me how I can live into meaningfulness and not aim about meaningless. Like we said, purpose isn't bad, but there's more. But wait, there's more.
There's more. That's right.
Like an infomercial. So yeah, allow God to reveal to you, not just once or twice here or there, not just during the Christmas season, but in your daily life. Like, how can we live into that space of meaning? And I think once we really get that picture, then that will inform so much about how we function and how we, relate to one another and how we think and how we just go about our business in the world. So
yeah.
Meaning.
That's good.
That's where it's at.
That's right.
All right, Dan. And just like that, did you hear that? My phone dropped. Just like that, we have done another show that has been so fun. Thank you guys for tuning in. Remember that we have an email address. So if you ever have questions, comments, things you want us to banter about, send those in. That will be linked on the page. And we really enjoy chatting with you guys when the show airs. So come on and be a part of that. 4 p.m. Central Time on YouTube. We will be there, and we'll just continue to connect and chat. Does that sound good, Dan?
Sounds great. Boy, I can't believe this one went so fast. And I realized because I was just talking so much that all of a sudden the time is done. So thanks for letting me kind of talk like a madman over all of these notes. And yeah, so.
It was what needed to happen today, and I'm happy that it did. Yep.
All right.
All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in. We'll catch you next week. Bye-bye.
See you guys.